It's Real Talk, episode 11, Jordan Peele, and I'm your host, Al the Movie Lion. Today, Sid the Cinema Sloth comes with a fun musical Easter egg and reviews Nope. Creation horror author and former WWE writer Joe Belcastro helps me understand if there's more beneath the surface to Peele's second film, Us. Editor-director Dominic Smith reviews Get Out and explains how going viral impacted his response to the film. Now quick, like this episode and send it to any lovers or haters of Jordan Peele.
Real Talk is powered by Real Digital. If you work for a brand or agency producing content, keep it real by setting up a consultation at www.realdigital.media to see how your next campaign can come in ahead of schedule and under budget.
On today's show, we're breaking down the directing catalog of Jordan Peele, but we're doing things in reverse. What do you get when you take one of Hollywood's top cinematographers and let him shoot a Western sci-fi adventure about siblings who try and tame an alien tormenting their ranch? If you're writer-director Jordan Peele, you get two underdeveloped stories that feel like a flabby chimp squeezed into an extra small jean jacket. Nope is the kind of sci-fi horror film that likes to play with the genre's tropes, but unfortunately embodies one of its worst, and seemingly for no reason. A joke can be irreverent and still funny, but I don't think a joke cannot make sense and still work. So too, I don't believe horror can be more than a collection of jump scares. There is not something going on beyond the intention to be creepy. So is there more to the visual symbolism in the film, or is the answer to the question found in the title? Regardless of your take on the movie's story, it's difficult not to acknowledge the quality of the performances, even if the characters are completely void of relatable psychology. Rather a floating shoe, deranged chimp, cheesy Jedi DP, or horse-hankering hot air balloon moth, perhaps Nope is a failed experiment, and the idea that since what you don't see is more terrifying than what you do, maybe what you don't understand will be far more horrific than what you can. Grab a cactus Slurpee and let's hear if Sid the Cinema Sloth can explain if Nope is a bad miracle or a bad movie. Sid, if that cloud moves, just look down and we'll be super good, buddy.
I'm not so sure. I think sometimes you look down and you still get sucked up into it.
Yeah, that's true. I guess maybe there's like if there's like something with eyes lying next to you, right? Like if it's like an uninflated waggly balloon man.
That's one of the things about this movie is that they give it a strict set of rules, but they don't abide by them.
We're going to get into this. We're going to dive into it because, yeah, unfortunately, I think that's going to be kind of the point we keep coming back to when we talk about Nope. Sid, this is your fourth time coming to the jungle, and I couldn't be happier to have you back. I know you've seen Nope a few times. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a fan would you say you are of the Jordan Peele catalog?
I really liked Get Out. I still like Get Out. His whole catalog, boy, you know, if it was when it was just Get Out, I really liked it. I'd say, yeah, it's great. But 1 to 10 for his catalog, I'm gonna say about a 5. I'll give it a 5.
So safe to say you're pretty neutral Jordan Peele fan.
Yeah.
No bias that we need to worry about here today.
No, he's cool. Yeah, I love him. Key and Peele on a lot of shit.
I'm curious, Sid, what were your thoughts on the plot?
Okay, we have an alien movie, so even there's not too much, but there's never that much in those type of movies. When you look at, though, all the inconsistencies through it, let me see if I give you an example. Okay, little things, again, like the nickel falling from the air can kill you sticking into wood. It's like, that's...
Our main character, his father was killed by a nickel falling from the sky, and it went through his eyeball and right into the old brain and killed him.
And it's not like it was in a tornado. It's just a free falling nickel. And I don't think that happens. You know, I think they proved that with dimes off of the world, you know, off of the Empire State's building. But didn't the nickel have a little bit of help from the alien? Because I took it as, well, this was like an upchuck. This was like the alien kind of, there were certain things it couldn't eat. Like it seems to be easy to eat a horse, but maybe can't eat like keys and pocket change. Yeah, and I don't mind that it can't, eat that stuff and then it just falls back down to earth. That's fine. But like, the key sticking in a horse, it's like, how tough a horse hide is, right? So, I don't know. Okay. The main stuff is, I start thinking about, I always get distracted by these little things because they're the kind of things that really annoy me in movies. What is going on with the fact that Saturday Night Live is doing a sketch of a brutal murderer. Mad Magazine puts out. They've never done any of that stuff. Why is that supposed to be like? How is that funny?
And look, hey, let's connect the dots here. We're talking about a creator who was on the cast of Mad TV for many years. I'm sitting there in the theater thinking, is this guy like taking a shot at the competition from a decade and a half ago? It's just I can't imagine he is. But to your point, no tragedy in the world where what do they say, 6+ actors are killed on a set.
Right.
Saturday Night Live's not doing sketches
No.
about that. It's like this would never happen. In if you're gonna write it in, shouldn't there be something significant payoff to why you're saying, oh, in this universe, entertainment is completely distasteful? I mean, it's just very strange. Continue, but that pulled me right out.
Apparently, it comes for 6 months. It's coming every time at its day to be fed, and then it turns and just decides to kill everyone. I mean,
My understanding was for whatever reason, it had sort of settled in this area. I would imagine just because there aren't a lot of people there, there's a pretty consistent cloud coverage. And then I think they say at one point he basically accidentally started getting consistently fed, almost as if like you started putting food out for a bear or a predator that comes around. And so when the Ricky Park character goes missing, it basically doesn't have someone feeding it, and my understanding was that's when OJ realized, oh, I can try and like because it's hungry and angry, because it's hangry,
right.
he could try to tame it. But that still doesn't answer why there's a being from another world just hanging out feeding on horses in the middle in the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but yeah, I also thought it was strange. Well, again, this is nitpicky stuff, but like just that he assumed it was an animal all of a sudden. Like, I don't know, like why couldn't it be a ship though? It's weird. There were a few times he makes an assumption and it's just a guess, but it's like, okay, so that's what it really is though. But really you have no idea. You have no reason to just say, okay, this is what is happening. I can't imagine somebody saying that something to me and you not going like why would you say that? But they just
Yeah, no, he there's a real convenience to his sort of knowledge. He's kind of the all-knowing hero, but just yeah, to your point, because he has to be. They think they can get money, there's like a reward if they can get a picture of it or something.
yeah, and that's
It
the other
seems
thing.
like such a silly payoff, especially when there's
Right.
written in that this alien literally killed this guy's father, but it doesn't ever seem like they're trying to get revenge, but there's a weird setup, even though at the end, what spoiler, when the alien is killed OJ's sister, played by Kiki Palmer, it like is so ecstatic about it, even though it's never established if she even knows that the alien killed it. So it just seems like it's all over the place in terms of what type of movie it's trying to be.
Would just curious, in a movie set, I've never been in a movie set. Would you have somebody come in like them with the horses and give a speech like a tour guide would? And would everybody sit around and listen to that? It just I don't know, I'm
Yes.
asking.
So safety meeting is a very common practice. Usually
Mhm.
safety meeting, you start your day, your assistant director does that. It does seem pretty funny the way the sort of set life is presented in this movie. I don't know who the most caricature cheesy version of a set. I did think, as a mascot of a production company, I would be shocked if you had the animal on set and then they were giving that speech. I think any good producer, you would
Right.
probably be having your safety meeting before the animal came on set. Also, no professional worth their weight on any sort of set, let alone what I would assume that was probably a union set, given there's animals and kind of what they were recreating in the universe. Nobody's getting within a horse's face like that with a ball. Nobody's doing the things. Nobody's treating the animal handler like they're the help. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, Jordan Peele has been on plenty of sets, clearly only his talent or above the line, because yeah, nobody behaves like this. And cringy is the word I would use. As somebody who's been on hundreds of sets, it was so cringy.
The one woman, she gets upset because his name is OJ. Like, oh, he's is that because he's black and named OJ? Like, is
Yes,
anybody
it is.
really gonna be?
That's the joke.
That was so long. Who cares?
I mean, again, it's ridiculous. Most vendors on any set are treated with respect. let alone if you are a wrangler of horses. I mean, I can't imagine anyone being disrespectful to someone like that, especially making fun of their name. I mean, again, just stupid writing.
It's so funny. It's like just the old white lady got scared. I don't know. She's supposed to be famous. It's like, come on. What do you, yeah. Why even do things like, I think you made a comment before, like you can't do the joke if it doesn't work or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not funny if it doesn't
Yeah.
actually make sense.
Yeah. That's a better way of what you said. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, 1 out of 10, Sid.
For plot, I give it a 2 out of 10.
2 out of 10. Sid coming and swinging. I love it. The performances in this movie are really strong. I think they're the best part of the movie. The characters in this movie, moronic, horribly written, doesn't make any sense, laughable. The actors really do elevate it. I think a lot of people who did enjoy this movie and liked it really came away defending it and defending it as sort of a stage for these actors. And I guess on some level, I could appreciate it on that. I thought Keke Palmer really charismatic and fun, but again, her character completely idiotic. At least from my point of view. Sid, what'd you think?
I thought she started out so annoying, but then she grew on me throughout the movie because in the beginning, she's like this kind of a stereotype of I'm sassy, I got a side hustle, you know what I mean? And then, you know what I mean? But then by the end of the movie, she kind of drops it though. At least her scenes, she's sincere in her scenes and she's not putting on that. I guess, and then him in the beginning, OJ, I'm kind of like, get it together, man. Not that I have a problem that he would have social anxiety or anything, but the fact that he just didn't seem like he knew what the hell was going on in the beginning, and I don't know if that was just for a reason that I personally don't understand. You know,
It's clearly written where, yeah, he should be maybe nervous or something, but he doesn't seem nervous. He just seems bored. The whole thing is it's very weird when he's on set.
then you have Keith David, right? The great Keith David in so many things. I saw that he was in this movie. I could not wait because it's been a while since I've seen a Keith David movie, and yes, there's spoiler. It's I don't even. He doesn't even get past the credits when it says "and Keith David." Are you kidding me? Like that's what you got this great guy to do is fall off a horse. Any other role he could have been.
The DP. I would have loved it if he were the cinematographer because no offense, Michael Wincott.
Yeah. Wincott's character. Yeah,
Yeah, like
I thought he might be too old for him, but I don't think so. Anyway.
I thought that character was so stupid and just it seemed like he was trying to write a bad horror. It's like he was like, "Oh, I want to make a Anaconda or something, and I just need like a weird John Voight character." And so all of a sudden we get this for no reason in the third act, this weird just weird DP guy, and like, oh my god, I genuinely hated every second he was on screen. Certain actors and in certain performances, Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, actually elevate the entire movie. The character of what was it, Antlers Holst is this
Yeah.
name? Brings this movie down
Right.
for me. It is so bad it tanks the movie for me.
And I also and Michael Wincott could have been the dad. What I don't understand is in the beginning he's clearly working, but then it's like he shows up and he looks like he's been fucking out of work for 10 years, you know? Like he just has that vibe about him, not just because he's wearing a robe, which is strange anyways, but it just seems like he's just like this washed up. He's deciding, okay, one last shot, I'll get back into it. It's like you were just working like 2 days ago.
He says, "I do one for them so I can do one for me." I took that to mean
Oh.
he did a commercial so he could then go film an alien for free
yeah.
or something. Taking the Steven Soderbergh approach to direct commercial photography, I thought that was one of the many reasons it was completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So what'd you think? Like, so I gotta know, before we move on, what'd you think of Stephen Yeun's character? It very interesting addition to the cast.
I thought he did a good job of the character, But it seems like in the beginning of the movie, right, he's a young child and he's on set and
Child actor, yeah.
filming a sitcom, and then the chimpanzee, who's the other star of the movie, he snaps and brutally murders.
We call that having a contract dispute.
Yeah, he is the sole survivor of this attack, and now he's an adult. Because he survived, he feels like he's chosen. And then when he saw this new alien, did it not kill him one time? That's why he kept doing it. Or I didn't see where there was a connection. The same with the shoe. I cannot understand the significance of the shoe.
Well, I do have an answer to that, but maybe this will be a good segue into visual storytelling because I think I want to talk about this stuff in visual
Okay.
storytelling. So let me get a score out of you for characters and performances.
Yeah.
1 out of 10.
Characters and performances, I gave a 4. And that's more for the characters than it is the performances. I actually bumped it up a notch for Keith David's performance in the beginning.
The Keith David bump up. Hey, I love it. Well, the 4 is locked in to commemorate your 4th appearance here on the show, Sid. We're giving characters and performances a 4. Visual storytelling. Yeah, let's talk about it. We got a floating shoe. We got a
Mhm.
crazy monkey. And I think a lot of this movie is dealing with the idea of coincidence. We do have the main character, OJ, ask at one point, what do you call a bad miracle? I think a lot of the quote unquote plot holes in this movie, I think a lot of the things that are just happening because this is a spooky, weird, eerie alien movie are just happening for the sake of tone. And I think that there's just an utter lack of explanation because that's what Wink Wink the movie is about. The movie is about coincidence. The movie is about anomaly. That is the only thing I can make of it. I would love to think that there's something more going on that's just way over my head. The ape seems to have a connection with the child, but then the ape is killed right in front of the child's eyes. So you can have a lot of questions about whose side is he on? Is he making a connection with the alien because he feels like, but you would be crazy to not connect the dots of this alien having potential dominion over alien creatures. I give an example of they're trying to film the alien right when they've set up all these surveillance cameras. There's a camera right on the alien, but inexplicably, there's a praying mantis that's on the lens. As soon as the alien goes away, the praying mantis leaves. That would lead the viewer to think that the alien has dominion over the praying mantis, which would lead you to believe maybe he had dominion over the monkey, or maybe it had the floating shoe, because there's all this information that you keep being given visually. There's never a payoff. There's never anything close to a payoff, and I think that that's really
Praying mantis goes towards the coincidence theory too.
and I guess that's what my ultimate point is that if you keep giving your audience information, but the payoff is, oh, it's all just a coincidence.
Yeah.
Well, my answer is no $68 million production is a coincidence. We as an audience deserve a little bit more than like, I don't know.
Yeah, or call it Murphy's Law, not Nope. The movie's not Nope. The movie is let's go full force and attack.
But I think the joke is this movie about something? What's the answer?
Yeah, but he didn't.
No, but I
he just-
literally, when I'm saying no, I do think
Like,
it is because I'm saying if you think about it, it's coincidence, and you could make an argument, people talk about a movie like Magnolia, and is
Yeah.
that a movie about divine intervention or is that a movie about coincidence? What does that mean? And I think this movie is sort of what Weapons is to Prisoners. I think maybe Nope is to Magnolia, where you're just taking this idea of
Huh.
coincidence. In this movie, there's very literally an alien. So you can't, I just don't understand how we can argue insane coincidence while there's also an alien flying around that has these powers that can make your cell phone go off or your, horse get sucked up into the sky. I think if you're going to have coincidence, then you need to remove the alien. But once you inject this big, insane force that actually explains to the audience why these crazy things are happening, you can't just introduce crazy random things and be like, oh, well, yeah, but that thing didn't mean anything. But please, I really do encourage the listeners, especially people who are fans of Jordan Peele and really like Nope. Let us know in the comments. Maybe we're missing something here.
Little things, electric bike, the flipping off the bike.
Why is there an electric bike? Because there's a weird TMZ element.
Yeah,
Because for no reason
right,
in a movie that's way too long, we need to remind the audience that the main character is a hero and he
right.
needs to go save somebody who doesn't need to be there and who is a jerk and ultimately ends up getting eaten by the alien. And it is just this, what are you doing? Whether it's taking a ridiculous shot at SNL that would never happen, or just having a guy show up in the middle of the desert to be an asshole because we need
Right.
somebody to be eaten by an alien that's not one of the only three characters we wrote into the movie. It just feels really sloppy. I know we're talking about visual
Oh
storytelling,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah,
Well, keeping with visual and too, I mean, in when Stephen Yoon's telling that story about SNL, even though I hate the SNL idea, like they would never do that. Man, that's probably my favorite part of the movie is him just telling that story and like and just seeing the look in his eyes like he's so into it and then you realize right after that it's a lot darker in his head than he's letting on.
like I said, I really do believe the performances that the cast brings elevates this because the script, it's so beyond absurd to think that a child, because again, a child actor being obsessed with
Yeah.
his fame, totally get that. A child actor who watched his entire cast and crew get mauled and killed by his best friend monkey, who then gave him a fist bump right before getting shot in the head.
Right.
I don't know, man. This
Well,
all seems like unnecessarily.
he wasn't the only survivor because there was the girl whose face was
Oh,
chewed off.
that's of course, yes. Talking.
And it's
Speaking of unnecessary,
right. I don't like what she just happens to be there. I don't understand that. I mean, there's nothing else about it to tie into where you're like, oh, it's just a very random.
it just feels like
uh,
set dressing. It's like
Did he call her there purposely? But he didn't know he was gonna do that.
I totally look at it as just more
Yeah.
like themeless set dressing where you're just, I think Jordan Peele uses characters as set dressing. Oh, we need this to be weird. We need this to be creepy. Let's have a Daft Punk guy drive up on it, because the first time you see the movie, that is weird. You don't know
Yeah.
what is going on, and then it just turns out again to be coincidence. It turns out to be nothing. Maybe, the woman whose face was torn off by the chimp, it's just coincidence she showed up that day and gets eaten by an alien. Regardless, she's only there because we need that scene to be a little bit spookier. It feels like there was a version of this script written, and then somebody came in and just injected this whole other storyline because they thought, well, this movie isn't scary enough. But I keep going back and beating up the story. I'm sorry, Sid. Visual storytelling,
I gave it a 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10. Locking in the five. That brings us to use of sound. I'll give Nope its flowers. I think the sound design in this film is really well done. I think it's nice to have a Jordan Peele movie where the score isn't kind of seemingly based on like a really well-known pop song or again this sort of pop horror theme. This felt more appropriate, a little more grounded in like a pop western horror thing. I don't know. What do you think, Sid?
Yeah, I actually thought this use of sound was the best part, was the highest as well. I like I have issues with why does the radio in the van continue to just drag when the car's still working. It just goes against his own rules. But
He's got that FM vinyl, you know?
yeah, yeah. But that being said, he does a good job of having, of knowing where everything is with sound, just as far as, that goes. All the machines, what do you call them? The sky dancing, tire sales people,
The
wacky
wacky.
waving inflatable tube man.
That's right.
Yeah. I think overall the sound is good. And I think, the soundtrack is all right too. I don't remember a lot of the soundtrack, but I think that's a good thing. I don't think it needed to have a huge soundtrack that you remember, but they did use, which is awesome. He uses at the she puts the record on at the end, Exuma, the Obia man. That's cool for a few reasons. The connection between that and this movie, I think it's like a Caribbean type religion. spiritual thing where it's about not praying to a deity, but calling on one to protect and to fight. So I kind of like that she uses that song to blast out
Yeah.
at him. Yeah, I like that song, and I mean that using that alone bumps up the sound a lot for me because, like I said, I look at sound two different ways. You know, you've got sound effects and then you've got music. Yeah, man. If a movie has a good song in it, and I think it works for the scene well, that's always a positive.
And that comes at a pivotal point in the movie, so I feel like that's an important track.
Besides that, I did think the sound itself was pretty good in the movie. You know, he did a fine job.
Look, I feel like it's strong, it's technically strong. I kind of say it's on par with the cinematography. It's doing everything that it's supposed to be doing. Like I said, I think it's more reserved than at least the Us soundtrack, which I think kind of got in the way of itself a few times, and it kind of does what a good score shouldn't do, which is sort of remind you that it's there, instead of kind of enhancing the experience. So yeah, I thought, again, I would say it was probably the highest marks in the movie for me as well. 1 out of 10. What'd you give it, Sid?
I gave it an 8.
Locking in the 8, which brings us to theme, or perhaps lack thereof. I had a couple that I noted. Again, I brought up earlier that, coincidence seems to sort of be the driving theme, which maybe Nope is a great example of why coincidence should never be the theme in your movie. But I don't know. Did I miss something, Sid? What did you see? And maybe some thoughts on the theme.
I actually seemed a little difficult too to find a straight theme or just a singular theme. You definitely have you have inner strength, right? The whole finding inner strength, standing up for yourself. But these are just little things that are all throughout the movie here and there. Like the point of the movie is what? I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's just a movie that you watch and is entertaining, and then you go, "Oh, that was a fun summer ride."
It seemed to me at the beginning of the movie this was very much going to be a film about legacy. He's taking over for his father, but you get to the end of the movie,
Yeah,
where did that go?
well, yeah,
Yeah.
she doesn't say when they kill it, she doesn't say, "You don't mess with us," or "You don't fuck with us." She said, "You don't fuck with Haywood," their last name. So
Yes.
again, it was back to the family, like you said. And then there was the other connecting thing was the "I see you" between him and her. I'm not sure where Angel fits in. If he was just
I think it is the sort of collection of characters within the circumstance that maybe dictates the theme more than him necessarily. I do want to point out, the three 613. I'm sorry, 613 is a time that is mentioned multiple times in the film. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Ricky mentions that the ape spent 6 minutes and 13 seconds mauling everyone, and then of course I think they say that the alien comes at 613 every day. 613, that seems to be a consistent enough clue, but I don't know what the payoff is. And I don't mind a movie that has little clues and things that allow multiple viewings to have more payoffs, but the movie's got to be strong enough to get you to want to go back and watch it for no other reason than you have a podcast talking about the person who made it. We saw with Get Out that Jordan Peele really had an inspired script. But boy, I don't know. By the time we get to Nope, it really feels like a guy who just nobody is saying Nope to, and he can get away with whatever he wants. 1 out of 10, Sid. You can get away with whatever you want here on the show. What do you give it? The theme.
But I gave it a 4 out of 10.
That means we've got everything locked in. We have a final score for you, Sid. You gave the plot a 2 ski. You gave the characters and performances a 4. You gave the visual storytelling a 5. The use of sound an 8. In the themes a 4. The total is a 46 for Nope. Do you want to? Are you comfortable with the 46? Do you want to adjust that at all?
I it's hard. It's hard. I want to go. Yeah, I really. Keith David's performance saved it.
I mean, a 46. That's a solid D. You could give it a D
Yeah.
plus if you wanted. I mean, up to you.
Let me see what I gave it. Did I write something down? No, I gave it a solid D, baby.
D.
I was gonna put a D plus, but I feel like a D plus is kind of like a backhanded compliment.
Yeah, at that point, what are you?
even the two or three main things that, maybe the issue with the plot, or two or three issues with the plot, it's just not enough to, as far as being scared go, as far as it being a movie where I want to keep going back and rewatching it. It's just, I've seen it a few times now, and I'm good. I'm good. I probably don't need to watch it ever again. The actors, I love all the actors in it. They're great. It's, and I have no problem with Jordan Peele. Nope. For this movie. Nope.
There you go. I thought for a second maybe you thought like Jordan Peele's parents were listening or something. You were really
Oh.
you were really softening that bit.
No, yeah.
He's a D, but I like him. Don't
Right.
get me wrong. He's a great kid.
Yeah.
Mrs. Peele.
Yeah, no, right. But because I could smash on a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. I mean, he has okay stuff, but I don't give a shit. Or Michael Bay, right? I mean, what do I care about their feelings? They don't care about my feelings. I'm not saying Jordan Peele cares about.
I think
my
that's
feelings.
exactly what we heard. You're the cinema sloth, baby. You don't have to.
Sloth, yeah.
You don't have to defend it. Look, I got to defend my score though,
Yes.
as I reveal it here. So, the plot to your 2, I gave it a 4. I didn't like it, but for some reason, I guess I liked it a little bit more than you do. Characters and performances similar. I gave it a 5.5 to your 4. Visual storytelling, I gave a 7 to your 5. Use of sound, I gave a 7 to your 8. And then theme, you and I both were aligned in commemorating your 4th appearance here with a 4. So my total was a 55. I gave this a C minus. Of Peele's 3 movies, this may be a bad spoiler to kick off the show, but I think this is easily the weakest of the 3. I feel like this is just a runaway train, or maybe a runaway hot air balloon squid monster is the better way of putting it. But you don't have to run away, Sid. I'm really glad that you came and you helped me get through this. Will you come back? And let me ask you, maybe the next time you come back, you can help me talk about like another Keith Davidson alien movie?
Keith David movie? Yes, absolutely. Another
Keith David, as he's also known.
Yeah, another Keith David alien movie. I think I can do that. Almost time for Halloween.
That's right.
So got the tree decorated with skulls. The skulls of eagles, because eagles are my natural enemy.
Yeah, the skulls of your enemy.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great way to wrap things up here. We've got the skulls of Sid's enemies hanging with Halloween glee. We are going to be celebrating Halloween with the John Carpenter episode, and I think, Sid, that would be the perfect time to have you back, and we can chat then. But until then, Sid, thank you so much for coming by. Hang in there, buddy, if that radio starts slowing down.
I'll kick it into high gear.
Platinum Plastic isn't just a proud sponsor of Real Talk, they're also the home for all our new designs and merchandise. Follow Platinum Plastic on Redbubble to see all our A+ gear. That's Platinum Plastic on Redbubble for all your Real Talk merch.
The following review is powered by the provocative and twisted mind of author Joe Belcastro. Dive into his imagination at joebelcastro.com. An analogy is defined as a comparison between two things, typically for the purpose of explanation or clarification. Jeremiah 11:11 reads, "Therefore this is what the Lord said, I will bring on them a disaster they cannot escape. Although they cry out to me, I will not listen to them," and refers to God telling Jeremiah that the people of Judah and Jerusalem broke their covenant with them. Now, I have no problem admitting that I had to Google that after watching Us, so maybe if I knew that going in, I would have enjoyed the film more. But the question still stands, is Us an analogy for Jeremiah 11:11, an adaptation of it, or something else completely? Regardless of the answer, there's no denying the plot and therefore film relies on a twist ending, which is a risky wager, as best case scenario, the twist inspires a rewatch. But worst case, the story ends on a note that feels cheap. Lucky for us, the movie is full of authentic and creepy performances that challenge the range of the leads and give star Lupita Nyong'o a true opportunity to shine. So does the twist work? Does the unique soundtrack enhance the story? And is the plot an analogy for something deeper than God punishing the characters in Jordan Peele's 2019 zombie clone horror comedy? Former film critic and horror novelist Joe Belcastro returns to the show to help me solve this riddle. Joe? How far did you get into Us before you realized this movie actually had nothing to do with you and me?
Al, I was very disappointed, but I hung on till the end, hoping it would be.
I kept looking for you, bud.
I know. What a misleading world we live in.
Well, Joe, I might have missed you. It is the spooky season. You came dressed up today, so thank you so much for that.
Yeah, well, I gotta go from this to a Halloween party, and I figured why not?
Well, you look good in the red jumpsuit, and I'm glad TSA let you on with the gold scissors. But regardless, we're talking us today. I'm so glad that you've returned, that you decided to come back and join the jungle, and it's just you. You didn't come with a weird, creepy clone version of yourself. No offense to your weird, creepy clone. Was this your first time watching us, or did you see it when it was released in 2019?
Nope. Even though I try to scoop up every horror movie that comes out eventually, this one slipped past me, but this was also during my prime. I was traveling a lot in 2019. I remember that.
This movie did exceedingly well at the box office. It was very, very
Totally, yeah.
on a budget of $20 million. It earned reportedly $256 million worldwide. I think you may have been the only person who didn't see this in theaters. I'm kidding. I actually didn't see this in theaters myself, so it was at least you and I. Maybe that's why we weren't in it. Regardless, this movie did very well at the box office. I didn't see it until recently myself. We had fresh eyes to review it. The plot is what we're going to talk about first. I mean, this movie is, if nothing else, all plot. I mean, like I said in my open, it hinges on a big twist ending. If at any point I think if you're interested in this movie, it has to be because you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
Plot. There's like 7 plots that they tried to put in one, and it just did not work at all.
Joe, what are your thoughts on the plots of us?
Yeah. This movie, I stayed with it because you're already there, and how much more can they pile on? Because I feel like they're just trying to outthink themselves, outsmart the audience. They're trying to be way too clever. But I was like, all right, if you're gonna go for it, let's see what you can do. Maybe you can get me at the end and be like, holy crap, now I get it. And then you get to that twist, and I'm like, you don't need this freaking twist. Like, you didn't need it at all. And that doesn't mean that ruined the movie. The movie was already ruined before I even got to the damn twist. Yes, this movie, like you said, was amazing. Like, grossed 256 million worldwide. 253 million overpaid to see this piece of crap. There's some positives to it, but in the plot, I just didn't know where they're going. Like, this is supposed to be what? Elevated horror? This is like, I think that's an oxymoron. It didn't elevate anything. I get it. I understood the movie, but it just didn't make sense to me. The whole plot just seemed like, all right, I want to be fun, but then I want to do something really serious, and like, okay, but just stay in the one plot,
Right.
which they opened the movie with, of saying there's so many underground tunnels,
Right.
under the earth, right, and like,
We don't know
okay,
why. Yeah.
yeah, like, all right, stick with that, and they kind of get you there.
Kind of.
Then they just try to add another layer to something.
Yeah.
Just stick with it. So the plot just did not do it for me, obviously.
The reality is, we talked about how well this did internationally. I mean, 2 of the leading stars were co-stars of one of the most successful films of the decade in Black Panther. Get Out, which was the predecessor to this film, did very, very well critically and financially. So I think a lot of the success of this movie financially doesn't necessarily support a successful story that was told. For me, and I'm curious because I think you're more of a kind of a horror head than I am, I have a really hard time, more with horror than other genres, suspending my disbelief, because I think horror is much more like comedy than it is like fantasy. And what I mean by that is, if you don't think a joke is funny, nobody ever says, oh, come on, you have to suspend your disbelief. If a joke doesn't make sense, you're not going to laugh at it. It has to make sense for it to be funny on some level. For horror to work, I think that you can't ask the audience to suspend their disbelief if you're doing something to build tension. And right out of the gate, this movie loses me because there's all these little moments that I just don't think should be happening, and they only happen because the script needs them to happen. And I'll only pick on one because it totally pulled me out of the movie 3 minutes in. And it is when the mom and the dad are at the carnival and they're bickering and they're fighting.
and the dad is trying to find games. The mom doesn't want him to find a game. He finally finds whack-a-mole. As soon as he pays the man and starts to go play whack-a-mole, mom says she has to pee. Why would she go pee then? Why would she not say, wait to play whack-a-mole and let me go pee, or I will wait to pee until this 90-second game is over? But there's so many moments in this movie where it's just senseless. Like, nobody would be that dumb. No two people would be that bad of parents to go, oh, my husband is playing a 90-second carnival game. I should abandon my child in the middle of this spooky carnival. And I understand that they explain why the daughter walks away and goes and finds the funhouse mirror. But it's those little things, like I said, that, at least for this lion, totally pulled me out and made it very, very difficult.
Al, I thought you were gonna be being a little nitpicky, even though I look forward to slamming this movie with you. All right, I see your point. I actually, believe it or not, I'll kind of defend it. That didn't bother me. Yes, everything you said is correct. However, I was like, oh, what they're trying to do is show that time period where we were allowed as kids just to go wander around freely and nobody would, it was just normal.
Right.
Like, everything was, quote, safer. I think that's what they're trying to do. So since that happened so early, like, that's really the first 3 minutes, like you said.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, whatever. Get me to get the girl in position to show me what we have to be worried about. But yeah, now that you mention it, I'm like, yeah, that was stupid right from the get-go. So that explains why everything else that followed was just in terms of storytelling. Because every time it's like, hey, we're going to do something stupid, but we're going to give you some exposition and tell you why we did it.
Right.
It just made it more confusing. It was a pattern. And I like kind of that style of exposition. Horror movies have to have a definitive identity, or you have to be really crafty and kind of meshing, like genre bending. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, that one recently, they found a way, like, it starts out as one thing and it turns into something else by the end, and you're there for it. It works. They seamlessly get you there. So, like, it can be done. This just didn't work, which is sad. The actors are all in on this. It did not elevate anything other than, the alcohol in my glass to just keep drinking. Maybe this will get better. Like,
To get through it. Yeah, you're well, then I might as well ask, because there are a couple, like I said, this movie's all plot, so I feel like we're going to keep coming back to it when we're talking about the visual storytelling. We're talking about the themes of the characters. We're going to get to these things. So I'll push us forward. What would you give the plot? 1 out of 10. That noise was a perfect reaction, but I'm not sure I can lock it in as a numerical value.
no, I mean, I'll give it a 3, but I'm doing it because at least they tried something and they had the genesis of something that could be cool, but they didn't know what to do with it. So a 3.
There's a level of mystery in this movie that I didn't, and you kind of said the same thing earlier, that you didn't need to solve it. It didn't need to be explained. And by virtue of trying to explain it, they just open up all this can of worms, and then there's therefore never any explanation for things. Why every human being apparently has a clone of themselves living underground that some mysterious group is using to control us, never even attempted to be explained. And I just think you can't introduce something like that and then just leave it on the table. So it's difficult. I hear what you're saying. This feels well-intentioned, but it's really difficult to, I don't know, score it.
You hit on something there real quick. They tried to make a story that should have been like a trilogy. They try to put into one movie. That whole underground, like, why is this happening? There's part 2, right?
Right.
Give me that, like, and then build to something like, yeah, this is just a smorgasbord of shit.
There's a quote for the poster. I totally agree. I feel like this felt like a Twilight Zone episode that was like 20 minutes long, and you might just have a line. You could have a line like that, like there's an underground system of tunnels and clones, and the audience would accept it because they know they don't have enough time to explain it. This movie has time to explain stuff and just doesn't. We'll move on to characters and performances, which I feel like is a real high point in this movie. What did you think of the characters in this movie?
All right, so basically what they're setting up, the strangers, right? This is what I thought this movie was going to be, with like an added layer to it. But they were like, all right, they put it in a different setting. It's not like stuck in the backwoods. It's technically kind of in the woods, but it's like a luxurious country club Hamptons woods. And I liked all the characters. I think you had all the right pieces. Family of 4. I mean, the dad, Gabe Wilson, I think his name was.
Yes, Gabe Wilson, aka Homer Simpson. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that guy, what a character arc he had. The punching bag. He's like the dumbest guy in the world for some reason yet. But he was supposed to be the comedy, but it was just subtle. But like everybody was there, and like there's a good round of supporting players too. There's like the one main family, and of course they have their clones. So you gotta give them credit right there because they're playing two parts, and they do that very well.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple, Kitty Tyler and Josh Tyler. They did well too. They're familiar faces. Like those are one of those actors who are like, oh yeah, I don't know them by name, but I've seen their face in like so many movies and shows. But everyone's great in that, doing dual roles because they have to play their normal self and then they have to play their clone. The edits on that of making that work was all great. So yeah, that's the high point. So I was fine with all the characters. They had the right amount of characters. It just was like, okay, like what a waste of talent who are hustling and going all in on this. I'm wondering if like they even knew
Right.
by scene, and like they never knew the ending. Like they never knew. They're like, here's it, because you could technically just shoot this like a block, right? Like, hey, this is what's happening here.
Tenet style, where I mean, you could
Yeah, there you go.
technically do this movie where you have no idea what's going on and just be told, yeah, in this scene, your spooky mom or your good mom or your whatever, you know.
Michael Bay Transformers movie.
That's right. This movie has a pretty distinct contrast in the characters and performances. I feel like the performances are really strong. I feel like they're really natural. I feel like they're maybe, for me, one of the only highlights about this movie. I didn't like the characters. I thought the characters were way too dumb for no reason. Again, just because they needed to be, whether that's the main character's parents, whether that's, Homer Simpson, who we mentioned earlier. The kids are really sharp. Our main character is really sharp. The twist at the end, spoiler for anybody listening, the character we've been spending time with the entire movie, the Adelaide that we know, is in fact the evil Adelaide, the clone Adelaide. In the moment, I gotta be honest, it didn't really seem like that big of a twist. It is something I had kind of thought about a little throughout the movie. I mean, there's various times where you wonder if they've switched. So the fact that the switch happened at the beginning, not that big a thing. I did think that it was interesting because that by default means, and you can confirm if I'm right or wrong here, Joe, that the two kids are then the clones, because how could the clone have real kids? And the last shot of the movie is the little boy pulling the monkey mask down, and I interpreted that very much as confirmation that the first twist is mom is the clone, and then the second twist is the little boy is the clone, which then if you think about it during the credits, well, that means the sister is the clone. As interesting as that is in a moment, when you start to then think about the performances and the things, I don't know, it all just seems to kind of fall apart. I bring all of that up because there is a moment when the boy, the son, Jason Wilson is the character's name, he sort of saves the family because, as we understand, or at least as we try to understand, the characters in these movies are tethered, meaning that the clone can control the human, the normal person. And we see the little boy, what we think is the human Jason, pick up his arms and walk backwards, and therefore the bad clone walks into a fire and gets killed. Now, the logic of the movie suggests that that can't happen. It would be the reverse, which again, I feel like is more confirmation that the Jason we saw, the little boy, was the clone, which is why he could control the quote-unquote clone. So then I start thinking,
wait a minute, let's stay with this, because you got to way deeper. I don't think they sold any of that. I only thought the clone was the twist at the end, like, all right, it's been the mother. No, but you're right. Like, if it is her, because she was switched at such a young age, then everybody she popped out is like, well, they're hybrid clones,
right? There's some in the clone version.
The fact that we have to talk about this just shows how bad the movie is. Like,
look, this is real talk, baby. All right, somebody's got to talk. Somebody's got to make sense of this thing.
And you hate to slam it because, like, I love anybody who tries to challenge themselves with a story or a script. And all those points you just brought about, like, oh, the kids then are like this and that. And then the thing about, they didn't really sell me, they didn't sell the gimmick of like, hey, if you're tethered, this happens. Because I think there's other times where like things happen to them and the tethering. There's like, oh no, that's
Right.
creative liberty.
This is what's weird about this movie. The plot is so character centric. Like we're talking about tethering, and it's these characters and how they're connected, and it all builds to this kind of ballet dance sequence that suggests maybe that this is an analogy for creation, and if you're not connected to your creative self, what could that result in? I'm clearly trying to find the meaning. In my open, I talk about what is this an analogy for? What are we trying to talk about in this movie? Because the reality is we're still in the family. All of this stuff is interesting. I'm giving it points. Why is there a system of tunnels and everybody has a clone and who is control? That's my issue with it, is I wanted to give the plot a higher score after I thought about the movie for 25 minutes, because I thought, well, maybe that's what the point is. The point is to get you to think, and all of a sudden you start recontextualizing these things. But the reality is it falls apart because there isn't going to be answers. I'm never going to understand why there's this weird tribute to Hands Across America in it. And so I could go on and on. Characters and performances for me were the highlight in this movie, even though the characters I felt like were a real drawback, but the performances were a strength.
I just want to say I now know if Al ever took ayahuasca, how a competition would go.
There's only one way to find out, Joe.
Yeah, I guess next time. I would say the performances, again, strong, especially doing double duty and having to make me believe like they are the antithesis of who they are.
Yes.
So I'm going to go with an 8.
That brings us to visual storytelling. You mentioned it already. We're kind of just there, the switching back and forth between the characters. There's plenty of movies between Moon, Mickey 17, Adaptation, where one character plays two different characters. Where one actor plays two different characters. We have a whole cast of actors playing different characters in this movie. And I think it works really, really well. The gimmick, it plays.
That's for sure. And the setup of how they positioned them, again, that's the thing that kept me going. And the guy who did it, I believe his name is Mike. I'll let you try to remember his last name, because I'm not going to try to butcher that sucker. Gaiolakis?
Gaiolakis is what I was going to say. Gaiolakis.
Yeah.
I know he's a big listener of the show, so let us know, Mike, in the comments if we're saying your last name right.
But he has, it's funny, he has experience with dual roles, right? Like Split, and then it follows to a certain extent as well, because that's a great horror movie, and it's shot such a simple movie, such a simple premise, and I will remember that movie forever. This one I'm going to forget about all the effort they went in to try to make this statement, so to speak. Man, but visually, he helps sell the duality of each character, and so that works. They knew the playground they were in, which is like these nice mansions, mansions in these wooded area, right?
It's outside of Santa Fe, if I'm not mistaken. It's West Coast.
It was out in the water too, right?
Yeah. It's kind of this beachy. It's very lovely.
Right setup, cool, and that helps. So everything visually, yeah, it's there. That kid kind of keeps you going along with the performances. So that's what you're holding on to. I mean, that's tough.
It doesn't compensate for the plot and the theme. I think a movie like Nope, which I have a lot of equal issues with, I think the visual storytelling actually does kind of compensate for some of the issues. Didn't do so much for me. I'll wait to reveal my score. What would you give the visual storytelling, Joe?
I'll give it a 6.
The 6 is in.
For Mike Gaiolakis.
That's right, a 6 for Mike G. Next up is use of sound. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts of use of sound, because this soundtrack is a decision. It is an attempt to do something. Let me get your thoughts before I go on.
No, I mean, look, the music felt right, but I think sometimes the music just needs to be the subtle layer, and it works, and it does its job. We're gonna keep just hammering the damn plot, but since there's that disjointed connection between, like, oh, we're having fun, and it's a campy horror movie, then all of a sudden, like, this is deadly serious, like, oh, this is getting real, like a mother might watch her son get his throat slit, stuff like that level. I don't know, I kind of focused on it because I lost interest in everything else. I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. It's just subtle tones here and there that works in horror, and the way they blocked it complemented it well with the sound. So it was fine, but like that's all I could say. It was fine.
What would the numerical value of fine be?
I mean, a 5.
James Gunn, when he made Guardians of the Galaxy, sort of started this trend, which obviously existed decades before with filmmakers from Quentin Tarantino and Martin Scorsese, of taking pop music and kind of inserting it where it didn't really exist beforehand. Like I said, Scorsese did it in gangster pictures. James Gunn did it in your superhero action movies. And I feel like Jordan Peele is trying to do that with the horror genre. And I agree. I thought this was a really fun soundtrack. I actually used to listen to this soundtrack before I ever even saw the movie. I may or may not have a few, like the kind of creepy horror version of Five on it, that they play.
Yeah.
I love that song, but at no point does it make the movie creepier for me or scarier. So tonally, I don't know how it assists the film. So for me, as much as I enjoyed it, I felt like it was actually somehow counterproductive to the watch. That brings us to theme, Joe. I asked in my open, is this thing an analogy? Is it exploring identity, themes of culture, themes of generational trauma? What's going on thematically here, Joe?
I have nothing. I don't want to even like pretend to stretch like, oh, they were going for this and this. No, like, hey, there's people that exist and there's copies of us, and the copy of ourselves are kind of evil. Yeah, no shit. Like, we all deal with that internally. We get it. Other than that, I mean, I don't think I saw anything else. I didn't see any family dynamic. Again, I don't want to just stretch to stretch. I'll just ask a question. Maybe you saw it. You seem to be a little more into the details of these things. Like, the main family is a well-off Black family, and their friends are kind of the yuppie white couple. Yeah, they set that dynamic up. I don't think it went anywhere other than, all right, they're kind of like that yuppie Karen type crowd maybe, and that's it. But I didn't think there's any like racial statement being made or anything like that at all, unless I missed it.
No, I agree. I think that's just because of what Get Out was. I think I definitely came into this movie assuming there was going to be kind of a focus on like culture in that way, but it definitely doesn't seem to be present. It seems to be way more about sort of the internal culture within an individual, imposter syndrome or whatever, versus any kind of outside. But that dynamic is set up. The white friends are positioned to be significantly more financially well off. They have a bigger place, they have bigger boats, better cars, things like that. I don't know, not really a negative. The kids don't get along, so there is this sort of weird tension there. We mentioned the white friends, they do have a set of twin daughters that I don't know. Let's just say when their zombies get killed, it's not, nobody's upset about it. It's got a theme in there, but God love anybody who knows what it is. Tell us in the comments what you think the theme is. Joe, tell us in the episode what you would give the theme 1 out of 10.
Probably give it a 2, because there might have been 2 in there. I just didn't get it.
Joe is, as I said before, a horror head. I don't even know if that's a term, but I may be trying to coin it here.
Well, if you say it fast, it sounds like you're a whorehead. I'm like, well,
look, I like I said, I was really interested in your thoughts on this film because this is your lane. Like you're a writer, you're a horror writer. You gave the plot a 3. You gave the characters and performances an 8. The visual storytelling a 6. The use of sound a 5, and the themes a 2. That's a total of 48. So technically, on our scale, that's a C. That's like a C minus, a D plus. How do you?
I gotta work on my averages. If this was out like no, I think if that's a C. No, I don't want people thinking this is an average movie. It's a well-made technical movie.
Sure.
But no, it's just waste of entertainment time.
So would that be, is that an F then? Is that a flat out F, or we get?
No, it can't be an F because there are some good things. I would give it a D.
D. All right. So we've got a 48.
My score. I gotta work on my scoring.
Oh, Joe, look, it's only your second time on the show. You're getting warmed up, you're getting loose. I'll tell you what mine was. To your 3, I gave the plot a 5. Again, I spent some time thinking about Well, and I'll explain why. I spent some time thinking about it afterwards, and that was fun. Oddly enough, I had a better time thinking about the movie afterwards than I had watching it. So whatever points it earned for that, it then immediately kind of got brought down. There's too many holes in this movie. Maybe I'm being kind, but I left it with a 5 because, like I said, I do think it's well intentioned. It just doesn't stick the landing. The characters and performances, to your 8, I gave it an 8. Nothing to elaborate on there. Visual storytelling, I gave it a 5 to your 6. There were things that I liked about this movie visually, but I also wish that it was almost too consistent for me. You know, when we were at the carnival earlier, I would have liked that to maybe have a different look and feel than what the rest of the movie felt like. It just sort of felt like everything was kind of paint by numbers. Even if the paint by numbers was pretty, it just never really deviated. And I think it could have been more creative there. The use of sound, I gave a 5, same as you, to your 5. Like I said, I enjoyed the music, but it pulled me out of the movie, so I was just kind of neutral. The themes, I gave it a 3.5 to your 2. I know there's themes in there. I know they're trying to say something. I have no problem saying I don't know what the hell they're trying to say. I sure thought about it. I even Googled Jeremiah 11:11. So that to me, it actually gave it a 53 overall. And on our scale, we give it a C. A lot of people saw this. A lot of people enjoy it. I can acknowledge I'm missing something here, so I'm just going to leave it as a C. Although I don't think your D is at all.
No, just because you're in the minority doesn't mean you're wrong.
That's a good point. Just because you're the only male lion in the pride, damn it. No, sorry, that's an argument for another show. Al's not a misogynistic lion, everybody. Just that's not how we're ending this one. Joe.
Ayahuasca. Let's go.
That's right. Will you come back on the show and maybe do some ayahuasca with me?
I would love to have my first drug experience with you. Yes, Al.
Oh, wonderful. Well, before you go, maybe you could take a second and just tell folks the name of your new book that you have coming out. I believe it might actually already be out.
I wanted to write the horror genre, and I was thinking about which platform to do it, but I was like, all right, let me try doing the books again. And so I wrote Creation Horror. Part 1 is out right now. You can find it at Amazon. And you can also go to my website, joebelcastro.com. I'll get you there as well and show you what other stuff I've written in my writing career in general. But part 2 is also finished. I'm just holding on to that till early next year to release that.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to read both of them. This is your 4th novel, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Your 4th release, I should say. Obviously, there's clearly more in the can, but the 4th release. I can attest Joe is a brilliant writer. Everybody should go check that out. We have the links that you just mentioned, Joe, linked in the description of the video here, so nobody should have any issues finding it. Joe, thank you so much for coming on once again. Can I have you come back? Maybe watch another horror picture with me.
Yeah, if Jordan Peele doesn't shoot me first. I'd love to.
He was an avid listener of the show, and then I don't think he's going to be too happy with this episode. But regardless, Jordan, we only critique you because we have a high expectation. Joe, thank you so much. You always meet my expectations, my friend. It was great seeing you.
Thank you, Al.
Before we jump into the next review, I just wanted to thank you for listening this far, and I ask that you leave a like if you're enjoying the show. And let us know what movies you'd like to hear us score on Real Talk. We're almost certainly on your favorite social media platform, so search Al the Movie Lion wherever you scroll.
At the age of 38, comedian Jordan Peele released his first feature film, and in doing so seemed to not only create a new subgenre of horror, but he also earned so much credibility it seems few have questioned his decisions since. I should be clear that the subgenre I'm referring to is pop culture, camouflaged as representation, but packaged for casual moviegoers. I fully expect to receive a lot of pushback against my thoughts on the work of Jordan Peele and Get Out in particular, so let me be as clear as possible to not offend those assuming they need to interpret what's being said. I believe that presenting delusional elites as standard white culture is unfortunately racist, as it continues the seemingly endless trend of using race as a means to define characters while ignoring the larger culture of the affluent, which it's clearly depicting. Get Out presents a plot and characters that are clearly about class, but Peele grounds every moment in race, as if the script can't understand that culture is defined more by circumstance often than the color of flesh. I like the main character because I like the actor, and he's clearly doing as much as he can with the material, but I I was constantly thinking as I watched, I would never do that. Lil Rel Howery plays Rod Williams, and although extremely entertaining and funny, seems to solely be a vessel to pump stereotypes into the story, and his constant reiteration that white people want sex slaves is a clue that Jordan Peele must have never been invited to any Diddy parties. I genuinely want to find out if Get Out contains any hope or messages beyond mongering racial tension, so I'm very glad that one of my best friends, editor-director Dominic Smith, has joined me today in the jungle to help me unpack this film that I recognize as a modern classic and resonates with millions of moviegoers. Dom, welcome back, and I just want to let you know, if they let Lions vote, I would have voted for Obama twice.
So not a third term, you son of...
Well, I guess I just had to cross the bridge of being a lion voting first. But you know what? If they let Lions vote and they let Obama run again, you're gosh darn right. He would get my technically first vote, I guess, in the way this is playing out. But regardless, he has my support. Anyway, Dom, thank you for coming here. Thank you for sitting through that very long opening that I wrote. I know that I'm coming into this one with a pretty specific take, and I have to imagine that there are people listening who might share that. But I know that years ago, closer to when this film came out, you and I had had discussions, and you had shared with me what it meant to you and what seeing someone like Jordan Peele operating in this space meant to you. So it was really important to me to have you on. Again, not so you have to defend the work, but just because I really love and value your opinion, and I want to hear what you think about this movie.
2017, I had created a Nightmare on Elm Street fan trailer series, and I was experiencing what it felt like to go through virality, experiencing what that felt like and experiencing what you choosing to approach like a series like that and go with the lead black cast and like seeing what that response felt like. That was the head, just to give you guys a headspace of like where I was at. And I was getting maybe 10% negative comments, 90% positive, but I could only focus on the negative. And even in the mix of that was just, you know, some racist stuff as well. So it absolutely molded my mindset during 2017. So when I got to see Get Out, we didn't really have too many horror films with a black director and going with a black lead. And it's just kind of Afrocentric. All of those things made me feel seen as a black director. Not even feeling like I needed to create a film that was about the black, like a horror film that was about the black experience or anything like that. I just wanted to feel comfortable casting a black lead as a black director and that being okay. And immediately feeling this rush of people making me feel like it wasn't okay. And when I say like 10% of the comments were this, be mindful that I probably received maybe like 20,000 comments.
Yeah, well, I wanted to jump in and not to run it back too much. As a creator, to see somebody only have, you know, maybe 90 seconds to 2 minutes to kind of do something and present something, I've always been a big fan of it, and clearly it resonated with people because I remember when you put this out, it blew up overnight. So yeah, when Dom says 10%, he's being very kind because we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of comments that were extremely ugly, and that's probably me being really, really kind. They were hateful, and they were ignorant, and they were wrong. And as someone who cares about you and cares about your work, I hated seeing that, and I can't imagine. I mean, it wasn't directed at me, and it pissed me off. So I can't imagine what it would have made you feel like. So I think that's really important because that not when I say microcosmic, I just mean in the, sort of the world. You experiencing a specific event of putting out a trailer, releasing something, and you're experiencing this hate, you know, that is reflective, unfortunately, of so many people's experience. So when you say that that impacted how you viewed the film, I think that's really important because it's safe to say, I don't know if Get Out was made for white lions. And if it resonated with you and made you feel heard and made you feel seen, I think that's really important because that's probably what it was intending to do. I think that's a great primer. Let's jump into it and talk about plot first.
There was so much about the initial plot before we get to experience what our twist is. And even the twist as an African American, I specifically have to say African American, so people fully understand. A lot of us more than likely felt that twist happening. The twist that we get is that Chris's girlfriend Rose is in on it. She does a very solid job of playing up to this idea that I didn't know, I didn't expect them to be this way, I didn't blah blah blah, and like they even set it up beautifully at the very beginning. He just flat out asked her, "You told your parents that I'm black, right?" That could come off as a very charged question, but when you grow up as a black man here, you have to ask that question. And I remember looking at my wife, who is a Czech, she is a Czech woman. She did not grow up here. She's only lived here for about 6, 7 years. So a lot of our history she is learning through the eyes of me. And I told her that it's crazy because my experience with you wasn't the same as it has been as I've grown up in America and had a ton of white friends growing up. I'm not the person who's like, man, I got two white, like, no, I got a slew. So I've been in a scenario multiple times where I've gone to a white friend's house where I was the only black person. And before I went there, I would ask them if their parents knew that I was black, because unfortunately what happens is when those are your parents, you aren't able, like sometimes you aren't able to see those subtleties because there's no reason for them to show those subtleties to you. And if they do, you may read them as something else that they aren't until a black person is there and they can let you know, this is how that made me feel. I don't know if this is what they were insinuating, but this, so kind of having us on the edge of our seats this entire time up until it's just completely revealed that, yeah, you're not getting the keys, was terrifying.
I had a very different experience watching the Rose character because at no point did she seem sincere to me. From the beginning, and obviously I didn't even know what the setup of the movie was yet when that first time, but when you bring up that question, the way she's acting, which by the end of the movie makes perfect sense once you know the twist, but in the beginning, it felt so disconnected to me. I was like, this is either bad acting or there's something more going on here because they don't seem close. They don't seem connected. And dare I say that if we're looking at this movie through our kind of different experiences and lenses, that it might unfortunately be a little bit more of a part of your experience to see white people being inauthentic, and it might not seem as unnatural. Whereas to me, I immediately was like, this person is so unbelievably inauthentic. She's either a bad actor or there's something coming. When you say that, like, oh, it wasn't until she reveals the keys that you kind of had that real twist moment, because that's fascinating, because that was a real low point for me in the sense that I had just been waiting for them to get to it, because I was like, yeah, of course she is bad. But anyway, I digress. We are talking about the plot, so I want to keep it focused to that. You make a great point, though, how that moment in particular was really impactful for you. That's really kind of the moment where the hero, the main character, there's no more wondering what's going on. It's all about, at that point, getting out.
Man, I think it's also because like I grew up in a country where I just have been taught. I hate to talk about race so much, but that's what this film is about. And like I have been like forced to give white people the benefit of the doubt. I cannot say that I have never been in that situation. I have been in that situation a multitude of times trying to like walk on thin ice. Like, let me explain. There were so many times where Chris would say, oh, you're just gonna make a joke of it, never mind. Been in that situation before because it took everything in me to speak up. And once I spoke up, you invalidated my feeling, whatever my gut reaction is. And now, because I don't want to seem like I'm making a big deal out of a situation, I kind of go back within myself and it's like, got it. Let me just like rework my mindset and make sure I'm not tripping. 3 different times in that movie, I watched him do that and immediately connected to that experience. My wife, she said to me at one point, she was like, yeah, I would have left. I would have got out of here. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a situation very similar to this before we even get into the science fiction aspect of it. People being this way in this, and like, let me also not make it seem like every single, experience I've ever had with a group of white people where I was the only black person was like this, but I would say it's literally 50-50. The plot was extremely solid in showing this experience authentically.
It's awesome to hear that, because I sort of consume this movie again just as a horror movie, as a science fiction. I mean, it's not lost. I mean, the symbolism of the cotton in the ears, various things like that. Obviously, I'm aware enough and appreciate that, but I'm probably going to say this a lot. That's one of the reasons I'm really happy to be having this conversation with you, because you are shining a light on, again, a perspective that I just, I didn't have. All people win, or lions, when you are somewhere new, when you are around people that don't look like you, it's uncomfortable. Let's just say it as it is. It shouldn't be. This movie does really explore that feeling and that experience, and it heightens it so well. And I think that's maybe the issue I took with it, because if we're talking specifically about plot, I think what it ultimately, and I'm really editorializing here, devolves into, I think actually kind of robs it of what you're saying, like, again, it really evoked in you. And we'll come back to that. I want to know, though, 1 out of 10, what do we give the plot before we get into characters and performances?
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Boom. All right. Obviously, this movie is about the characters. It's so much, again, everything we're talking about is represented in these characters and who they are. Did you feel that the family was a fair representation of white culture? And as much as you're talking about how the film resonates with you and represents a really important part of the black culture, I guess that's where in my open, when I just look at this and go, I don't feel this has anything to do with white people. It has more to do with, specifically when I'm talking about the plot of the movie and the decisions they make, these are only things that wealthy people can do. And unfortunately, we've seen wealthy people do of all backgrounds.
Just like I mentioned to my wife, I was explaining to her how like black people aren't a monolith. Neither are white people. They come in very different experiences. But I will say, I'll have 3 different experiences if I'm in a situation where I am within a group of white people who I've never met before. It's my first time being introduced to them. I either experience they already have a bunch of very horrible examples of what they view a black person to be, and I get to experience whatever that is. Or I get to experience a group of people who will go overboard to try to prove to me that they're not racist by essentially just like naming a bunch of black shit. Jerome from when I was in high school, and like, man, he had dressed just like you. And I get it. They're trying to make this connection, and they'll try to tell jokes that are borderline racist. And then the third version, just regular people. And it's a regular experience, and they're not a try-hard. They are just being authentically them. So those are the 3 different experiences I go through. So within this film, it was just showing you one version. So in my mind, it was authentic for that version. It wasn't really meant to speak for every experience.
And I think that's a really great way of putting it. And I certainly would not expect for the movie to try and show every shade of the, white experience, so to speak, if it wasn't a movie that was very clearly having a conversation about race and only presenting this one version. And unfortunately, again, Rose, the female character played by Allison Wilson, because she does a twist, you kind of get robbed of whatever maybe potential representation you felt like existed there if you are a white viewer. And what ends up happening as a result is I feel like the movie doesn't end up giving the viewer, or at least this viewer, a suggestion or an answer. It just sort of lets you revel in this sort of anger that it's sort of drummed up, and then gives you, again, a really violent, non-practical answer that I have no doubt leaves certain members of the audience as satisfied. But we have, Rod, as he is, he's kind of constantly bringing up this white people. And I think you could very easily just throw in rich white people, or these rich people, or these whatever. And I think you still get all of the subtlety without this sort of what does unfortunately feel like, I'm not saying it was the intention, but it feels like finger pointing. And unfortunately, it feels like the movie kind of becomes an example of what it's saying shouldn't be done. And that's where I think there's this sort of tragic irony to what is a really well-made film, an incredible cast, really great actors. I mean, I want to be clear, my issues with this film lie solely with the sort of script. Characters and performances is what we're talking about. I want to make sure that's clear. I actually, I mentioned him in my open, Lil Rel Howery, who plays Rod Williams. He's fantastic in the movie. Again, I do think a lot of time in contemporary horror or even action and thriller movies, there's a little too much comedy, and I think he's almost too good at being funny in moments where I think we should maybe be settling a little bit more with the weight of what's going on. I think Bradley Whitford as Dean, who's sort of the evil dad in this movie, he's just always been amazing in everything he did. I was a lion who grew up in a house that watched a lot of West Wing, so I got a lot of love for Bradley. Catherine Keener is in the movie, another sort of legendary actor.
Yeah, I think everybody did a phenomenal job. There's a real tough moment, and they're sitting there in the living room. My wife and I are watching it, and the dad goes on. He does his little like spiel about deers and 100,000 of them. He's like, they're like rats. They're ruining the ecosystem. And every time I see a dead one on the side of the road, I think to myself, that's a start. And we cut to Chris. You can see the look on his face. And I look at my wife and she's like, yeah, man, just like the way that we treat deer. Now there's something that is being said there. And I was like, change the word deer with black. And I'm going to rewind it and have you watch it.
Yeah, this ain't about Bambi, baby.
And she looks at me and she's like, oh my God. I'm literally here dissecting every moment of this film. And I just wanted to make sure that you received it appropriately, how it was supposed to be presented. And also just how you can be in a situation where it feels like there's undertones happening that you may or may not be picking up on. Daniel Kaluuya's acting, like his reacting was almost more explosive than the acting. Just watching how he received moments was just like, God, like, who are you? And then, like, he was a kid, man. He looks like a kid when I watch it now.
He's so understated with everything that he does, and he has to do all this acting with his eyes because he can't really speak in these situations. And he has just these great eyes, and he does so much with this, just like, Ninja Turtle strip, like he's of band across his face, and he can express so much. And yeah, there's a lot of understated tension and things that are kind of presented early on, and I can see how, yeah, if you're just kind of casually viewing this, you could miss it. But even when he's giving the tour and he's mentioning the black mold, and there's just this, and what I'm trying to acknowledge is what I felt like was heavy-handed, but even what you're talking about, I mean, you have a wonderfully intelligent wife who's married to a black man, and she just missed it. Maybe you do need that reiteration of the point to make sure that maybe they missed this part, but I want to catch them here, or I want to catch them here. Give your audience opportunities to catch something if they got up to go pee, or if they just missed something. So I do have to acknowledge in real time, as I kind of beat up a film for being heavy-handed, not everyone watching the movie is hosting a movie review podcast. They're maybe not looking at it quite as closely as I am.
That's the point, and how someone can be the way that you view it as heavy-handed, and someone who may have grown up around that energy isn't even picking it up. So it's, again, like, these things can be viewed as heavy-handed if you never choose to step outside your shoes and imagine how this is being received by the other person. The performances with the maid and the groundskeeper, those were very interesting to watch now that I know the story, because I remember first watching it, and like, you kind of just go through it trying to figure it out. When the maid is in the room and she's like explaining like her unplugging the phone, and you see her like have this struggle moment. If you've seen the film, now you know what's happening. This woman is trying to take back control of the steering wheel, and she kind of gets the steering wheel for like a second, and that's when that tear drops. Man, I watched that scene so differently Same thing with the groundskeeper. Just the tonality. It sounds like an older white man, and I'm just like, did they possibly ADR this or something? Because it was a very solid performance for what we're supposed to receive in the end when we understand what's going on. I thought it was impressive. I really love the mom. Oh my God, I love her performance. She is impressively deceptive. She really kind of like tricks him into this moment. It's already begun and he doesn't even realize it yet. She has already started this process. And I thought there was just so many incredible performances.
I really appreciate the cast. I really appreciate what they're doing. I did not really have the same reactions, just in terms of mostly again Catherine Keener. I just felt like from the jump, there was something going on, and it just didn't. Even the hip. I mean, look, for those who have not seen the film, if you're still listening, the movie is kind of centered, in all Jordan Peele movies and a lot of contemporary horror movies kind of pick a very fantastic element, the new movie Weapons, as I hear, I'm just going to start spoiling a bunch of movies for people, but, Weapons is sort of a witch movie, if you will. This is a hypnosis movie. This is a movie about being able to mind control people. And I don't know. To me, she didn't really do it for me. She didn't give me enough of a sinister side. She didn't give me, I felt like even the handling of the hypnosis was kind of, I don't know, just throwaway. Like there was enough of a consistency where it was like, okay, we as the audience know she's doing this now, but it didn't really seem to make any sense. For me, when I watched it, it just felt like it was happening because it had to happen for the story to move forward. And I felt like the actors were doing what they could, but it didn't really resonate with me. It didn't actually make me feel like anything other than I was just watching a movie and I was watching these characters sort of tell us something that we had to get, because it was just missing that something for me.
The very true stereotype of just African Americans not really playing into the experience of therapy. And that's why I say she was very impressive in the way that she pulls him in, because if you have never gone through a therapy session before or anything, you don't know what it's supposed to feel like. And he has this moment where he's like, wait, did you start already? And by this point, she was already deep into the session and he didn't even know. It's drastically changing now, but we're in 2025. This was 2017. It just wasn't a big thing. You were just viewed as crazy if you felt like you needed to go see a therapist, unfortunately. So all of that played into my number, which is 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10, locked in for characters and performances. We're moving on to visual storytelling. I want to maybe take this opportunity to, again, talk about where the movie kind of falls apart a little bit for me. And that has to do with a lot of these very sincere, again, really important themes and ideas that are sort of brought up at the beginning. But once we start to get more into the horror or the fantasy aspect of it, to me, it loses the sincerity, because all of these understated things, for example, the father talking about the deer, it sort of all of a sudden becomes very, very different. And you find out, oh no, he is very racist and they're mining people and they have this whole thing. When you talk about the experience you have and how that feels familiar, I don't know. I feel like I would maybe be more interested in a movie that is trying to be about that experience and not then trying to run off into something else. Up until we get to kind of the third act, I was really jiving with this movie and the way it looked, and I was really on board. And then it just kind of really deteriorated for me into what I thought was visually just not up to par with sort of the ideas that it was bringing.
I love this idea that he created of the sunken place, because the sunken place symbolizes being a powerless passenger in your own life, a metaphor for the Black experience in America. The reality is, and I would say, like, man, I don't know where my mindset is today. I would have to really sit down and do some more internal work, but I grew up feeling like white people have control over me, control over where I get to be, where I can't be. Even in a place where segregation doesn't exist as a law anymore, There's just places where I would not be comfortable being because I don't know what can happen with me being there as a Black person for any reason. If it just looks like I'm not supposed to be there, I'm not supposed to belong there. With him creating this Sunken Place as this just like powerless passenger of your own body, it resonates strongly with me. Outside of us like having this wide shot where we see him kind of like moving, where we're just seeing his POV and it's a TV that you're watching and you don't really have full control over what happens. I love that aspect. I love the constant visual tension that they create throughout and all of these very unsettling moments. Just the isolation that they attempt to create visually within Chris. Like when he's in that room, just like those stats that they have around him and all of that. And for them, this is just like ping pong room or whatever. The moment with Chris and the brother, when they're all at dinner together, they're back and forth, and we no longer really acknowledge everybody else in the room. They keep everything really tight. I thought just really helped ground Chris's experience in all of this.
I will say I really did appreciate it is a really beautiful visual metaphor. Again, I think for me at that point I was still really into the film. That's still part where you don't know what things are, you don't know how they're going to pay off. And so yeah, that was probably, if I'm identifying one, probably the high point of the movie for me, the peak of where I was really with it. And then I think everything after that is sort of not up to that level, at least again from my opinion.
And I do remember feeling like the visual style altered once he had like escaped out of that room and he's like on trying to like get out. But it also felt like a reflection of the chaos that Chris is now experiencing. Everything is extremely cinematic up to that point of his escape. After that, even just the camera work feels as aggressive as Chris is in this moment. It's shot very differently than we filmed everything up to this point, but we also haven't gotten to see Chris be a beast, which is what he has become now in order for him to escape this place. So for me, visual storytelling is a 10. Also, shameless plug to Al sitting on the nightstand.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's get the elephant in the room, or maybe the lion in the room, out of the way. I was a little offended that, of course, all evil in this world was somehow represented by a plush lion doll. I don't get that. What's going on, gang? What's going on, Jordan? You couldn't find a North American animal to represent that? You can get like a polar bear or something? That was too on the nose. You had to go buy it anyway. I digress.
It is a African lion. They were like, we want to make him feel at home, so we will give him something of his motherland.
I appreciated it for what it was worth. We got that locked in. 10 out of 10 for visual storytelling. Let's move on to the use of sound. What'd you think of the use of sound, Dom?
In the opening, when our actor Lakeith Stanfield, very very beginning, he's just kind of moving through this neighborhood, literally having a conversation I've totally had before, because again, I have been in areas that felt beyond my price range, and like that doesn't really have to do with, it doesn't have as much to do with classism as it does to do with just the race of it, even if there were Black people living there, because they would even have this mindset of, the fuck you doing here? Which hits even harder because there's just this idea of belonging and not belonging, and just being like the difference between, he was even dressed decently, you know what I mean? Like he's even dressed decently. And let me not get in the weeds. The use of sound, I love when he gets kidnapped and there's this track playing called Run Rabbit Run, which is very like straightforward for what we're getting to experience. And then we immediately go out of that and to Childish Gambino's Stay Woke to kind of set the pace for the entire film. And just the sound design is very fun. I love the sound design for when we go into the Sunken Place. I love when she first sends him there and she's just like, sunk. And it just like drops to this deep tone. The teacup stirring for me kind of became a very unforgettable weapon for the entire film, where that kind of became a stamp.
Spoon stirring in the tea is sort of this form, is what's used in the movie as a catalyst for the mind control, and yeah, is one that is stuck with you. Don't stir your tea around Dom. That's the, or maybe you do, and maybe you'll immediately get control of him. Well, let us know in the comments if you've ever stirred your tea around Dom. 1 out of 10. What do you give it for use of sound?
I bet you could tell, but I'm gonna give it a 10.
And I would have never guessed. Well, that brings us to our last category, Dom. I've really wanted to give you the floor, and you've really shared some amazing insights, and I have no doubt that you will continue to do the same when you talk about theme, which is why I just, again, want to reiterate that I think my issue with the picture is that it's almost a victim of its own success within itself. It's giving me so many moments, especially early on, where I'm like, this is a really talented, smart guy at the helm of this ship. And for me, again, thematically, it seemed very immediate and consistent to me throughout the whole movie what the theme is. Am I missing something that's maybe a little more hopeful? Is there a leg to stand on, in that maybe the film could have offered something more than just an articulation and an expression of feeling, and more of something for the people who don't feel that way to take away and going, what can I do to help? We reviewed Malcolm X earlier this season, and there's a great scene where a lovely white woman walks up to Malcolm X and goes, what can we do to help? And he says, get out of the way. So this might be one of those moments where my white lion mouth needs to just shut up, feel it, take it on the chin, and maybe that's all this is. But I frame it as that because I'm just wondering, Dom, am I missing something? Is there maybe something more to it?
No, I honestly, I don't think that you're missing anything. I think in America, Black people make up 13%. White people make up 63%. I grew up in a space where I didn't even fully feel that 13%, and I still had experiences like this. When I moved to Florida, that's when I really felt 13%. I felt tiny. I felt like there wasn't enough people around me who we went to the same jungle college.
Yes, and I can confirm, Dom, I think because I think when we were there, we had about 103 students. I would be shocked if I can recall more than 6 Black faces, and that's male and female, and that's stretched across my entire 4 years of being there. So, yeah, I mean, I can confirm for what it's worth. Yeah.
When you think about it from that perspective, and a filmmaker is trying to, at the very least, speak to as many people from that 13% as he possibly can, because so many of them will be able to relate. And if you start altering the film to fit within any of the 63%, it kind of takes away from that small group completely. And I think the goal would be to just receive and understand, got it. Y'all experience shit like this. Y'all experience stuff authentically just like this. The other note I have made explores both fear of being hated and being idolized. The America's duality towards Blackness. Our history is rooted in a lot of hatred, and then eventually growing into being supportive of like hip hop and the way that we dance and all of that, and just like them really creating horror out of that. They want to be in your skin and do all of these things that don't involve them having to deal with the consequences of this skin tone, because they still get to have the money and the placement that they are with all of that. And now they also get this extra stuff. The theme also hit very strong, and it was very consistent. And so I ended up landing on a 10 out of 10 for that as well.
I have my scores locked in before we record. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
I changed all my scores during our conversation because of your, I don't want to say argument, but of your side. Like, So what I'm gonna do, because I don't have to reveal your score, it's 100 out of 100. You gave everything a 10 out of 10. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reveal what I gave this movie before we talked, and then I'm gonna reveal what I gave the movie after.
This is interesting.
The plot, I originally gave it a 4 out of 10, and I think I did a pretty good job of explaining why and what my issues were, but that's what just kept pulling me out. There was a psychology missing for me that just never connected, and it always made me a viewer of the movie and not an experiencer of the movie. So I originally gave it a 4. I did actually end up bumping that up to a 6. I've kind of explained how, 5 is sort of neutral. That's why I bumped it down to a 4. But you made a lot of really good points, and you did highlight things that I didn't see. So I have to still plead ignorance on some things, but I bump it up to a 6 because I genuinely see the positive side of it now. Characters and performances, I had given it a 6. Again, that's positive, but I felt like, again, it comes back to the character psychology is what really fell apart for me in some of the swerves and the way things were set up. But I did bump it up to a 7 because you did also point out a lot of the kind of connective tissue between some of the black characters that I didn't, quite frankly, see. So I have to give it its flowers and acknowledge that it's better than I thought it was. Visual storytelling, I had given it a 5 to start with. I had just given it a totally neutral. There were things that I liked about it, but there were things I didn't like about it. Dom, you did way too good of a job gushing over, in particular, the sunken, I'm sorry, I'm botching it. The sunken zone. No, what was it called?
The Sunken Place.
The Sunken Place. Thank you. So I bumped it up to a 7. I felt like, again, I needed to give it its flowers. Use of sound, I had given a 7, but just by virtue of me saying it was my highest category, I had to bump it up because, then now all of a sudden it's not the highest category. So I gave it an 8. And then theme, and this is what I think is really important. This is where I really missed the boat. And so I had given it a 3. It's my rule on this show that if a movie is an example of what it's trying to discuss, it has to be a 10 out of 10. Dom, I trust you. I believe you. Everything you said and sort of answered me. I think Get Out is an example of what it's trying to be. I think that it is an expression. It is not a lesson. And I think that's the lesson that I learned in our discussion. I went from giving it a 3 in theme to giving it a 10. Before our discussion, I had given Get Out a 50, a neutral 50, which was a C, just a C that I gave it. And now it is a 76. So I'm going to give that a B plus from a C. And it's just not an A for me. And it's not to say that I don't think it is an A quality film, but if I am genuinely talking about my reaction, it just is not on par with the reaction I give for other movies. But I have to give the quality of the film its due, and I have to, of course, give you your due for doing such a great job of representing, again, what I clearly didn't get. And that's what I've really designed this show to be, is a space where people who love movies can come together and talk about what they love and hopefully get something else out of it. So all of that said, Dom, you gave it 100. That's an A plus. I don't even have to ask. I gave it a 75 to a B plus. Brother, I loved having you here. I hope you'll come back again to the jungle. And as is the case, we've linked your information, your website information in the description. And again, thank you so much, Dom. I'm trying to think of a Get Out related way to end this. So, hey, let's hop in this TSA car and ride into the hills, baby.
A black guy doesn't die in this movie.
Thanks for listening, and here's a look at the scoreboard from our show. Sid graded Nope a 46 and a D to my 55 and C+, with an average of 50.5 and a C. Joe Belcastro graded Us a 48 and a D to my 53 and C, also giving it an average of 50.5 and a C. Finally landing the highest score on today's show is Get Out, which received 100 and A+ from Dominique Smith, and a 76 and B+ from me, with an average score of 88 and an A. Please tell me what you graded each film in the comments, as I genuinely want to know. A big thank you to Sid the Cinema Sloth, who has merchandise available now in our shop on Redbubble. Support Joe Belcastro by visiting his website, joebelcastro.com, and picking up one of, if not all, his great novels. And follow Dominic Smith on all platforms, but first check out his Nightmare fan trailer from 2017. Join us next week on episode 12, Robert Eggers, when cinematographer Christina Dober reviews The Witch, Jimmy the Toucan is back to grade The Lighthouse, and Joe Belcastro returns to score Nosferatu. Thanks to the team at Real Digital for producing this episode, and Platinum Plastic, who supplies all our merchandise on Redbubble. If you haven't left a like by now, you might as well, and subscribe to the channel, as well as hit the bell icon to be notified when Real Talk drops each week. Thanks for listening, and if you're gonna talk movies, make sure it's Real Talk.
You ready?
Sorry. Try me.
I believe they've been abducting black people, brainwashing them, making them work for them as sex slaves and shit. Oh, sorry about the shit.